Good morning, everyone. I will be passing it now to our Athletes as Leaders presenters. Welcome to Webinar 2. It is hosted by Futures Without Violence. My name is Jasenia Gorbea, and I manage our Coaching Boys into Men program here, a complementary program for male athletes. And now Athletes as Leaders is a program that is working specifically with female athletes, as Rebecca will illuminate. So with that, I will pass it over to Rebecca and Jatia. Thank you for joining us today, Rebecca and Jatia.
Thank you for having us. We are very excited to be here today. This webinar is the second in a series of 3. So this webinar is specifically intended for people who are interested in serving as mentors, and they're the ones who would facilitate the Athletes as Leaders program. You also might be an advocate who's interested in training mentors in the future. So this webinar is also for you. Today we're going to explore the curriculum content more in depth, and then we're also going to learn how to facilitate the groups with athletes, being really mindful that some of these are really sensitive topics, but we also want to have fun while doing it. We will be offering tips on facilitation skills and how you can build relationships with teams, and we're hoping by the end of the webinar you will have the tools that you need to facilitate the program with a group of athletes. So I'm going to start off by handing it over to Jatia to introduce herself, but I want to say a couple words first. Jatia has been involved with the Athletes as Leaders program literally since day one. We conceptualized this program together, and she is our guru when it comes to mentorship because we were trying to figure out how many teams she's mentored so far, and we think it's about 8. So she's done this program a lot, as well as being involved in its creation. So I'm going to hand it over to her to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. How are you guys today? So my name is Jatia Benton, and I have my bachelor's in public health from Eastern Washington University. I'm the clinic coordinator at Garfield High School's Teen Health Center, and I've been working with Rebecca for about 2.5 years at Harborview, and like she said, I'm also a co-author of Athletes as Leaders and also serves as a coordinator and mentor for several girls teams, and like she said, we counted up, and that's been 8 so far. And just to let you guys know, this is my first webinar, so woo-woo to me.
I'm so happy to have you, Jatia. And again, I've met most of you on webinar 1, but my name's Rebecca Milliman. I am the Prevention and Education Coordinator in Seattle at the Harborview Center for Sexual Assault and Traumatic Stress. We are a program of University of Washington Medicine. And I'm also the author of the Athletes as Leaders program, along with Jatia and our other colleague, Lisa Brooks. And here in Seattle, I manage a comprehensive sexual assault prevention project at a local high school. And we're actually recording live from this high school, Garfield, in Seattle. And we have support from a local rape prevention and education grant from the CDC that comes to our state, and so that's what is funding this project to do a comprehensive, widespread project here at this local high school. So a few other announcements before we get started. Again, we are presenting to you live from the school, so you might hear some random bells and maybe announcements while we're recording. So if that does occur, what we're going to try to do is mute ourselves momentarily, and then we'll come back on as soon as the bell rings. And we're also going to ask you to hold questions until the end, although Jatia can only be with us for the first hour. So I'm going to try to have some question and answer time before she gets going. But in the meantime, it's kind of challenging to track it in the chat box. So if you could hold your questions until we ask for them, that would be great so we can keep up with them. And then like Jasenia said, we will refer you to the web links when it's time to click on those. Okay, so first, now is the time to click on one of those web links. So we're going to watch a video. This is called Sisters in Sweat featuring Serena Williams. It's a great video. It's less than 2 minutes long. So what we're going to do is we're going to have you watch this video. It's basically Serena Williams who's speaking to her newborn daughter and talking about just her messages to her and what she hopes for her for the future. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go to the web links box, you're going to click on the Sisters in Sweat video, and then you'll click on the little button that says Browse To, that will automatically open up a new window and watch it in YouTube. So we're going to go ahead and mute and pause for 2 minutes to allow you time to watch this on your own. When you're all finished, you can type done in the chat box.
Okay, so it looks like a lot of people are done watching the video. If you're still watching, that's fine. You can continue to watch. But now we want to hear from you. You can type your answers in by typing into the chat box. So for those of you who were involved in sports at some point in time in your life, what do you guys think have been some of the positive impacts that sports have had on you? Okay, I see perseverance, determination, team building, teamwork, self-awareness, persistence, real friendship and brotherhood, definitely. Working as a team, having like-minded people with you. Self-discipline, that's a good one. Common goals, keeping commitments to be there for each other. That's amazing. Communicate effectively. I see a soccer player on here. Communication.
Having fun.
So we really appreciate your comments. They made me actually reflect on the time I played sports in high school, and it made me realize that it teaches important life lessons, just like you guys said, those communication skills, team building, teamwork. Definitely add those in my everyday life.
So most of you, I assume, were on webinar 1, but if not, we want to just review a little bit about the history and more about the program. So just having a little bit of technical difficulty. Here we go. Okay. So as you might already know, this was a program that we created locally here for this high school. And as I said before, I'm managing this comprehensive prevention project. And one of the original proposals was to do Coaching Boys into Men with one of the teams here. And Coaching Boys and Men, as you know, is a great program. It's evidence-based. It's relatively easy to implement, and I already knew one of the coaches here, and he was really excited about doing it. And there's a lot of social capital amongst athletes at this school, and sports are, it's just a really big part of the culture here. I think about 50% of the students play a sport. And so when I met with the principal, he really saw the value in this program and wanted to actually do it with every team. And we talked about how we were hoping to leverage, the social capital that athletes do have at the school and hopes that they can become role models for, respectful behavior and to create a level of accountability to speaking out against violence. And then, of course, the immediate thought was, what about the girls? What are we going to do with the girls' teams? And we know from gender-based violence prevention that we should clearly have a focus on engaging men and boys since they're more likely to perpetrate. But we also know that young women really should be central to this conversation. They understand these issues really deeply, and their voices should really be uplifted. And furthermore, the way we're marketing Coaching Boys and Men is as this amazing leadership opportunity for male athletes. And we, of course, due to Title IX and other efforts to achieve gender equity, we know we have to offer equal opportunities for all genders. So this is kind of what sparked the idea for the program. So after drafting the curriculum and piloting it with several teams and evaluating it in Seattle, we started getting a lot of inquiries from other communities who were interested in the program for their girls' teams. And so we were very fortunate to receive additional funding from Reliance, and we were able to publish the program nationally, make it available online for free, and we're hoping to create a sustainable and accessible program for any community to use. And so this webinar series will be part of that because it will be posted on our website and folks can use that for training in the future. So there's no way we could have done this also without the help of Futures, and so I want to specifically acknowledge Brian and Jasenia from Futures Without Violence. They were really helpful from the very beginning in sharing their preliminary research. They had done a lot of focus groups and literature reviews on creating a girls program. They've also provided just endless hours of consultation and technical assistance with our national pilot, and they're also hosting this webinar series, so we want to thank you for that.
So what is Athletes as Leaders, you ask? I'm pretty sure you're like, what is this program actually? So the program is all about developing student athletes, specifically females, as leaders. It is a program that encourages athletes to create a safe and supportive community on their teams and at their schools as well. It's based on research and best practices in sexual assault prevention. The program originally started at Rebecca and I's alma mater, which is Garfield High School in Seattle, and has now actually been implemented in Wyoming, Iowa, North Dakota, Washington, Texas, Utah, Pennsylvania, Arkansas, and Kansas. And if anyone else on the call has implemented our program in other locations, please feel free to type that in the text chat because we don't want to leave you guys out. We recommend this as a complement to other programs that involve boys and men in active prevention efforts. The boys team at our school have done the Coaching Boys into Men program, sorry about that. It would be an issue to only target girls with this information, like Rebecca was saying earlier. All genders should have an active role and voice in creating a safe community and preventing sexual assault and violence. So unless you're at an all-girls school or athletic organization, it's best practice to intentionally target young men as well.
So next we wanted to kind of explain these three terms and what their roles are. Ideally, this is a partnership between the mentor, as we call them, the advocate, and the coach. And ideally, you've got great communication between all three parties. With that said, this is not always necessarily three different people. Myself, for example, I'm an advocate, and I'm also a mentor. I facilitated this group with several teams. And we even had one of our pilot sites where we had an advocate who worked at a sexual assault or domestic violence program, and she was also a basketball coach at a local high school, and so she served as a mentor for that team. So in general, the advocate is usually the person who comes from usually a sexual assault or domestic violence program. It's their role to kind of, get this program up and started, meet with the organization or the school, get buy-in from the leadership, which we talked about on the last call, maybe identify who an ideal mentor would be, who would be a good fit for the team. They might offer training to that mentor. They definitely would offer training and support to a coach, work out what the schedule is, what the expectations are, and kind of just oversee the overall implementation and evaluation. Excuse me. And then next, what we call the mentor is the person who's mentoring the team, and this is the person who is actually facilitating the sessions with the athletes, and then also over the season and maybe over the year building a relationship with the team as well. And we'll talk about that later in this call. So you might recall from webinar 1 that we recommend that the mentor is a female identified person. And someone asked, is it okay for the mentor to be someone who's non-binary or gender creative? And of course, yes, that is a great fit for this program as well. In general, what we're trying to get at is someone facilitating the group who is relevant to the youth, who they can relate to, but who also maybe has personally experienced, female socialization in our culture and kind of very deeply understands these issues that we're talking about, which have to do with internalized sexism. And so we do think that, that person having that background is important, but it's not a strict, obviously gender is not a strict requirement for who the mentor is. But what we learned is that, at least here, a lot of our girls' teams are coached by men, and we didn't always feel that they would necessarily be the best messenger because of the sensitivity of the topics. And so this is kind of the format that we've worked out that has seemed to work well here, and was also based on research with focus groups with young female athletes in who they wanted to be mentored by. So the next role is the coach, and the coach is also a critical role. So the coach is the person who is the team kind of administrator, and he's the one that has the connection with the parents. So for example, when we want to send any contact or communication to parents, he or she's usually the one who will send that home for us or give us direct contact information for players or parents. If it's a male-identified coach, the question often becomes, should he be part of this program and should he be in the room and when we're doing the groups? And we've actually left that up to the athletes. Most athletes and most coaches kind of prefer that maybe he's not in the room. They want a really safe space where they can really be authentic and not have to worry about what they say. But we did actually have a team who did want their coach in the room, and he was really open to that, and they felt it was a way for him to get to know them on a deeper level. So it's kind of up to you and up to the team, but regardless, we do ask our coaches to stay on site just in case of any kind of liability or safety issue. We want them there. So usually they're kind of hanging out near where we're facilitating. So in general, like I said before, really good communication between all three, and really once it's all kind of set up, there's mostly a lot of interaction between the mentor and the coach. Like, for example, the mentors, kind of almost touching base with them weekly to confirm the groups and that sort of thing.
So as you can probably tell from thus far, our program is different from some of the other programs and messaging out there aimed at reducing sexual violence, especially those aimed for girls and women. With the program, we really try to avoid some of the more traditional sexual assault messages aimed at girls, such as don't walk alone at night, or travel with a buddy, or carry pepper spray. While all of these aren't necessarily bad advice, it ultimately puts the responsibility on women to protect herself from sexual assault, which isn't fair at all. The messages tend to blame the victim instead of the person who actually perpetrated the assault in the first place. So boys and men are far more likely to perpetrate sexual assault, as you may know. However, girls do also perpetrate some of the more normalized forms of sexual assault and harassment. And these include slut shaming, body shaming, girl-on-girl hate, rumor spreading, victim blaming, and also reinforcing negative stereotypes about themselves. So therefore, athletes as leaders, we focus on these forms of sexual harassment and assault, and that girls are more likely to perpetrate, and that they can play a role in preventing them. We also encourage our athletes to empower one another rather than bringing each other down, uplift each other rather than bringing each other down. When girls support each other and there's a strong, positive girl culture that advances us toward gender equality, sexual violence is less likely to occur. We also encourage athletes to be role models in the school and speak up as leaders around these types of issues.
So in the next few sections, we're going to be referring to some tools on our website. So I just want to make sure you have that link. It's athletesasleaders.org. There's also a web link there in your box on the right-hand side. So if you want to browse the website, it's there. When you click on our website, you will notice that we have an opportunity to sign up for our mailing list. So please do that if you want to get announcements directly from our program. We promise not to inundate you with too many emails, but if you want to have direct communication, go ahead and sign up there. And
now we're going to watch our short promotional video. This video gives you guys a taste for what the program is about, and it's different than our longer 3-minute program video that we watched in Webinar 1. So at this time, go to the web links box, click on Athletes as Leaders videos, and then click the button right below that says Browse To, and it should automatically pop up to a new window in YouTube. Please take a minute to watch the video on your own, and we will pause and give you time to watch it, and we ask that you please type done in the chat box when you have finished watching the video. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the program and the actual curriculum itself.
so as we said before, the curriculum is free online. When you go to our website, athletesasleaders.org, you just click on the program, and you can access all the sessions right there. You can click on each individual session along with the video that goes with it. Many of these are videos that you've probably already seen, videos that we love, that we curated, that were very relevant to the topic, and as well as the pre-survey and post-survey and evaluation tools. If you scroll down to the very bottom of the page, you'll see some really quick link buttons. That's what we call the toolkit. And there's a button on there to just access the complete program, so you can have all 10 sessions all in one PDF document, as well as even a binder cover that you can print, and you can put it all into a binder and have it all in one place.
So I'm going to give you guys a quick little blurb about what each of these sessions are about. So the first session is the introductory session. We orient them to the program, and we tell them the goals, and we have them also create group agreements. In session 2, we discuss challenging gender stereotypes, which we will model for you next. In session 3, privilege and oppression, athletes are encouraged to speak out against unfair practices, violence, and oppression, and also learn how to work towards justice and fairness for all people. Session 4, athletes discuss how they can challenge harmful societal messages, redefine beauty, and look at themselves and others more deeply for who they really are. In session 5, we have them think about ways that they can help stop rumor spreading, which often unfairly targets girls and women. And in session 6, we talk about healthy versus unhealthy relationships and the warning signs of relationship abuse. We also discuss with them their rights and responsibilities in a relationship and how they can support a friend who is involved in an abusive relationship. In our consent lesson, we talk about promoting a consent culture. We have them think about how they can practice consent in their relationships, including with friends and family and teammates. For instance, asking before giving a hug or even before posting a picture to their social media, since that's the newest thing nowadays. In session 8, messages about manhood, athletes think about how traditional gender stereotypes are harmful to people of all genders and limit people from being their true selves, specifically men in this one. In session 9, athletes discuss how jealousy can be reframed into admiration and how they can encourage and empower one another. And they also practice giving meaningful compliments beyond physical appearance. The final session is a celebration, and it includes a recognition circle and time to complete the post-survey. So a typical Athletes as Leaders Day it's actually designed to fit into a sports season. The program sessions happen about once a week and for 20 minutes. They're meant to be done during the team's practice time, so the motto is that coaches do commit some of their actual practice time to this curriculum. We ask that you strive to complete program sessions at a consistent day and time every week, and sending coaches reminders on the day before or the day of actually has been noted to help them. Even if it's a text message or an email, that's how we get our information out. Think about the best time to run the group, whether it be before practice, during practice, or after practice. Groups should be held during practice because we think that'll draw the best attendance. It also helps when coaches require attendance and have the program sessions on a team calendar, so everybody's on the same page. Make sure you plan your sessions out in advance with dates by looking at your game schedules in advance. If you need to get creative to fit all 10 sessions in, just consider attending a preseason retreat to complete sessions 1 and 2, or even consider doing 2 sessions in 1 week if you have to. Also, you will need to allow time for extra time, probably up to an hour for sessions 1 and 10 if you're administering the pre and post survey. Okay, so this is the structure of each session. We do a warm-up, workout, and a cool-down. In the printed curriculum, each session starts with a checklist of things to make sure you have. The script for the facilitator is printed in italics, and there are also boxes that include facilitator notes with special tips and recommendations to expand on the topic. The session starts with a quick introduction to this week's topic and watch a short video from YouTube. Then we have a facilitated discussion about the topic in the video. There are several key discussion points for the mentor to say if the athletes have not already said them, and you choose how you want to incorporate those talking points. Either you could do them while they are answering the discussion questions or even after they are finished discussing. It's just your preference. And lastly, the athletes come up with new ideas and team expectations during the team talk. These are the new social norms for the team, and they think about what they can do to address the issue at hand, whether it's at practice, at games, at school, or even in their community. We do all of this in about 20 minutes, and it can go quickly.
Yes.
Normally it takes us about 25 because we got some good answers, and we don't like to cut kids off, but that's how it goes. There are recommended times for each section in the printed columns as well, though.
Okay, so now we are actually going to show you one of the entire sessions, session 2, which is called JetChallenging Gender Stereotypes. And we really appreciate you in advance if you can play the role of a participant in this next section while we present the mentor script. So Jatia and I will be doing it together. And we really wish we could be here in person and we could actually see you, but we hope you will participate in the text chat.
All right, you guys ready? So today we're going to talk about challenging gender stereotypes and the traditional gender expectations. And as you know, a stereotype is an assumption or widely held belief about an entire group or a group of people. So today we're going to be talking about the stereotypes placed upon girls and women and how to challenge them. At this time, we're going to watch a video with interviews of young people. This advertising campaign is called Like a Girl, produced by Always. In addition to selling their products, the campaign promotes a positive message and challenges traditional gender stereotypes and expectations for girls and women. And when you watch this video, think about what it means to different people to do something like a girl. So now we ask that you click on the video in the web links box, then click the button that says Browse To. We will pause for a few minutes to allow you time. And we will, when you're done, please press done, or type in done, I'm sorry. Okay, so now we have some follow-up discussion questions for you all. So what differences did you notice between the young girls' responses and the older girls' responses? I'm going to ask one more time. What differences did you notice between the young girls' responses and the older girls' responses? The young girls didn't have negative stereotypes, more mature thought. The older girls acted out the stereotypes of run like a girl, and the younger girls were themselves. Younger girls were more upset. The older girls had, oh wow, you guys are giving a lot. Thanks for that. I'm not able to keep up. Young girls are tainted. Not tainted yet. The older girls have been, wow, you guys are really so quick. This is amazing.
Someone said that older girls have been socialized more to conform to the stereotypes, and the younger girls were just acting like themselves. The younger girls were more confident in who they were.
Mm-hmm.
The other girls maybe were more tarnished with their impressions of themselves. Ooh, the older girls have already been exposed to the toxicity of society stereotypes. That is on point.
Okay, now we got question 2. People are not born with the idea that girls are weak or inferior, or even that boys and girls are all that different. So where are these messages often learned? Where do you guys think that the messages are learned? Society, media, school, parents and family, TV, books, movies, social media, for sure, friends, peers, music, yes, that's a good one, the government, school admin, we got some teachers. Even in sports, as a female college athlete, I see more people come into men's games than mine. Yes, that's a problem here too. Cultural structures.
The adults in their lives, the roles women play or don't play. We really appreciate all your input, and we realize that these messages are so pervasive. It's really clear that people your age have challenged some of these traditional gender stereotypes and expectations for women and girls far more than any other generation before them. Female athletes really play a big leadership role in this area because they often represent what it means to be strong and powerful, tenacious and courageous. Some common phrases in sports that we may not even think of are based in gender stereotypes. For example, doing push-ups on your knees is often called what? Girl push-ups. That implies that girls are weak and inferior. And coaches and athletes, we kind of hear people say this kind of stuff all the time. And so before we say it, it's really important to think about how those kinds of subtle phrases sometimes can be actually based in gender stereotypes. So here is a challenge for you. We want you to think about the ways that our society stereotypes girls and try to challenge those messages. So especially think about the younger girls that you might have in your life and how you can teach them that girls can be strong, powerful, and that they can succeed in something amazing. As student leaders and athletes, you can help create an environment here at our school where, so in this case, it would be Garfield High School. So you all can really play a role here in creating a new culture at Garfield High School where the limited roles for girls and guys are challenged. There's no specific or certain way to be a girl or a guy, and all genders deserve equality and fairness.
Team talk.
Okay, now it's time for us to lead the team talk. So the purpose of the team talk is for us to come up with ideas for action based on today's topic. We will get in a circle, and I'm going to ask you a few questions. You can pass the ball to your teammate who's willing to share their idea. Only the person who has the ball should be talking. We want to hear your opinions and ideas on how to challenge or shine positivity to the topic at hand. In this circle, we are going to think of things that you can all do as student athletes and leaders. Don't worry. If you get stuck, we will be there to support you, add on, or help clarify. Hopefully, these will be things that the entire team can agree to do, whether it's at, practice or at school, on social media, or in the community. We're hoping that everyone this will kind of become the new team norms that will last beyond the season and into your everyday lives. So this week, we're going to brainstorm some ways that we can challenge gender stereotypes and promote female empowerment. So we want you all to first fill in the blank, and we'd love to hear from almost everyone on this one. Fill in the blank. Girls can be what? We see leaders, powerful, influential, passionate, anything they put their minds to. Empowering.
Anything that boys can be.
Yes. Anything they want. Girls can be ferocious, brave, smart, and pretty, strong, invincible, angry, anything they want, whatever they want. Just as good, if not better than a boy. Awesome.
Sensitive and tough, yes. Proud, anything.
Awesome. I am inspired by hearing your responses. Let's move on to the second question. How can you challenge the social messages and limited roles for girls? So, for example, what if someone told a young girl that she can't play the superhero, she can't be the doctor or the president? What would you tell her? Okay. Someone said, why not? Someone said to push how negativity really is hurtful on social media. You can if you want to. Someone said that's ridiculous. Don't listen to whoever told you that. You can be whatever you want. If it's your passion, go for it. The world is changing every day, and you can help bring about that change.
Prove them wrong.
Yes. I am a doctor, and I am a woman.
Yes.
Don't let anybody tell you who you have to be. You can be anyone or anything you set your mind to. Awesome. Thank you.
And the last question that we have is, what would you say to a girl who is trying to change the way she looks or acts because she wants to fit in with a certain group of girls? Don't. Be yourself. Be yourself and never lower your standards. Be a leader, not a follower. I've always been taught that. Be you regardless. Why do you want to fit in so badly?
Find something you love and be unapologetic about it. I love that. People will follow those who are confident in themselves. Someone has a validating statement. I love this. I can understand the pressure.
Mm-hmm. Find what makes you happy and go with your heart. Everyone is different.
Love it.
This one is hilarious. My daughter prefers to eat lunch at school with boys. She says they have a good sense of humor. Be yourself. Trends change every day. They sure do. But they do recycle, too.
I like this one. If everyone looked and acted the way they're supposed to, this would be a really boring type of world.
Right.
So be true to who you are, and people will love you for that.
Love you for you.
Someone also validated communicating to young people that you've also experienced those same pressures. I think that's important too, even as adults. I think it's important to validate that experience. Love yourself and who you are. How you treat yourself teaches others how to treat you. Ooh, I love it. Okay, great. Thank you so much for all your participation and sharing. This team has so many great ideas to make the community more empowering for women and girls and to be inclusive for everyone. So it's time to take a break for the day or get back to practice. And we usually close the circle with a team cheer. So we'll usually ask the upperclassmen or the team captains to lead the athletes in the cheer. Not all teams have a cheer, but some of the teams have a lot. Like I facilitated with the swim team, and they had 10 different cheers.
Oh my gosh.
So on every session, we actually ended it with a different cheer, which is just a great way to close it up.
So some of our answers from our actual athletes were be yourself, girls are tough, powerful, and amazing, don't use language that put girls down, tell younger girls they can be whatever and whoever they want. And I noticed you guys said a lot of those responses as well.
And so a lot of the tools, so that was the end of the session, and you get a little taste of what that feels like to go through the entire lesson. And I think that did take us a little less than 20 minutes. So obviously in person it's going to take a little bit longer. But just to give you a little taste of what that's like, and I think it's good to practice ahead of time if you are going to be mentoring a group before you start with the athletes. So give a chance for yourself to practice, even if it's just in the mirror. I find that to be really helpful. And there's lots of other great tips and tools here on our mentor page. So if you go to athletesasleaders.org and just click on the mentors tab at the top, you'll see this is what the mentor page looks like, and the tools at the bottom, quick links, including a facilitation guide, and we're going over a lot of that information today. Building relationships with teams, which we'll go over next. Evaluation tools, which are your surveys. Background information, which is how it relates to the research and really understanding the connection to sexual assault prevention, as well as the program, which is the full curriculum. And then lastly, tips on supporting survivors, which we will also discuss later in the call. I think this is a good point before we get into more specifics. Next, we're going to talk about space requirements, really specific facilitation skills. But before Jatia takes off here, she's probably the most experienced mentor we have in the country. So I just want to see if anyone has any questions for either of us so far on anything we've covered already in the call. So I see a question here from Judy. Judy said, can girls really hear all these messages? None of this is really new. Do these words actually work? And that's a really great question, and that's actually what we're hoping to find out as we continue to evaluate the program. We have seen really promising results already here at Garfield, and we are in a large, urban, fairly liberal environment here, and we have actually found even here that it has a really significant impact. And we found that girls feel more confident in their ability to challenge gender stereotypes. We also see an increase in their confidence level at speaking out when someone does make a sexist comment. We also see an increase in their ability to identify the difference between a healthy and an unhealthy relationship. And then when we did the national pilot, we've done a small national pilot so far. We've seen really promising results, actually even better than what we saw here in Seattle. So we'll cover that a lot more in Webinar 3 if you want to see specific results and how we're evaluating it. But I would agree, a lot of these messages are nothing new, and I do think that young female-identified youth still continue to need to hear these messages. Although, like we said in the lesson, I think this generation has come the furthest in really challenging these gender stereotypes. But there's just so many pressures. And like Jatia was saying, social media is a big thing now too, where it's just these additional pressures and rumors that go around very quickly that can be, it's just a new challenge for this current generation. So we are trying to get at the root of gender-based violence, which is gender inequity, and it is, very much feels like a female empowerment type program. But really, I think the crux of it is leveraging the social norms change that we can see occur when peers commit to each other that are already on the team. And that's why we've designed this, and Coaching Boys and Men as well, as designed around the sports team, because there's already this level of accountability, teamwork, and we believe that when they really say this in a group setting, it's almost that additional level of accountability that we hope will kind of carry on beyond the team.
We have we have a question that says, have you run this on co-ed teams? And we have done, yes, we have actually did that. So for cross country, it's co-ed. The girls will go with us, and during the same time as the girls are doing athletes as leaders, guys will do coaching boys into men. It definitely works out just fine. It has worked out in the past.
Yes, and for gender nonconforming athletes as well as transgender athletes, it's important to know what your school district policy is. For example, here in Seattle School District, a transgender athlete would be able to play on the sports team that most closely matches their gender identity, but other school districts might be different. But in the end of the day, if we have a transgender or gender nonconforming student, we would just let them pick whichever group they felt more comfortable with.
I saw someone ask what was the biggest challenge, I believe. For me, it was not even with the girls. It was actually with communicating with the coaches and figuring out a time and date and space that we can all do the program. But that's because I'm not a coach. For you guys, it will actually be easier if you're a coach, because you know your schedule, you know your game days, you know everything. And that was before we actually started nationally piloting our program. That was like the first year, getting to know everything. That was one of the biggest challenges. Answering, the girls are pretty easy on us. They answer our questions. It's not like pulling teeth. Like, sometimes it is, but not as much. What else would you say, Rebecca, was the hardest thing or the biggest challenge?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I would agree with Jatia. Sometimes coordinating everything, especially with spring sports in Seattle where it rains all the time. Things get canceled last minute, games get rescheduled, even the practice location would get changed sometimes, and so we just really rely on our mentors, whether that's myself or Jatia or some of our other volunteers and interns who also serve as mentors. We just have to have really good communication with that coach, and we have to be flexible. That's what we've kind of learned. And we've also learned, as Jatia said before, that having it during practice time is really the most effective because we are trying to leverage that team dynamic. It really works best when the whole team is there. So having it after practice, we didn't tend to draw as the attendance was not nearly as good versus the coaches that really made it just part of the expectation. It was part of practice time, and it made it really clear that their attendance was required, and we planned out the schedule in advance. That seemed to be much more successful. I saw someone also mention that they see clearly how we incorporate the topic of gender, but how do we incorporate the topic of race? Do you want to answer that, or do you want me to?
I think it's pretty free-flowing because Garfield is pretty diverse. It's a topic that, of course, is challenging to always talk about race, but our kids, they're pretty good about it. It's not, like I said, pulling teeth. They're open with it. It may get quiet a little bit for them, and we might have to orchestrate a little bit more, but they open up as far as race. What would you say? What additional pieces?
I would agree. I think the community that we're working in, there already is a lot of focus here at the school on social justice, and I think kids are kind of already used to talking about race and gender here. But we also design the curriculum in a way to make sure that at least that is addressed as well, even if there's not that level of comfort or experience. So one of the very first lessons is privilege and oppression, because we believe that violence is very much rooted in larger issues of oppression. So again, it's hard to do that topic any kind of justice in 20 minutes, but we do incorporate it, and we talk about the different forms of oppression, be it ableism, racism, adultism, heterosexism, sexism. We just talk about kind of it more as a structural issue rather than kind of individual being mean to somebody else. It's a larger structural issue. And we just talk about how those athletes play a role in speaking up when they do see unfair practices. Even being an athlete is a form of privilege, right? Even being an upperclassman is a form of privilege, or being in advanced classes, or being in student government, or being a staff member or a team captain or a really good athlete. All of those are forms of oppression too, and we talk to them about using their privilege in a way to kind of recognize when there are unfair practices going on and to speak up about it. and really listening to the experiences of people who are being oppressed. So we try to do it some introductory level kind of justice in this session, but it's also kind of woven throughout. And in case you're not in a very diverse school, or even if you are, we also tried to curate videos that represented diverse voices as well. What about this one? Have you done specifically a program that is both groups together? Not one or the other. I'm assuming what you mean, when someone asks about have you done both groups together, I'm assuming what they mean is genders, having all genders together. And like Jatia was saying, we do with co-ed teams, we do have coaching boys and men and athletes as leaders running simultaneously. But we also try to bring them together at the end of the season and do at least a final session together, and it's optional if they want to share what they learned or what they got out of the groups, and then we actually have them sign the pledge together from coaching boys into men. We kind of modified it a little bit to be more gender inclusive, and we have all the kids sign it and basically just kind of have a party at the end. And then we're in the project beyond the athletics, we're doing a lot more that's all genders together in the same space. So we're doing education and health classes, which is all genders using the FLASH curriculum, which stands for Family Life and Sexual Health. I'm also helping to advise a student-led club that's addressing gender-based violence prevention, and so that's also a gender-inclusive space as well.
I noticed there's a lot of facilitation questions, and we're actually going to get into that here in a few seconds. But before we do, I just want to share with you guys some additional recommendations to help make the program a success, specifically talking about space requirements. So make sure there's enough space for all the athletes to sit comfortably. If possible, sit in a circle or some seating arrangement, like the picture shows. It's been proven effective, where athletes, they could see each other, and also so they could see the video. And every session requires showing the video, so make sure that the space has internet and a computer with speakers and a screen to display the video. But on the other hand, if it's not possible, you could consider using a tablet or a phone to show the video, and we've done this for a couple sessions, and it worked out just fine. I mean, everybody has to be in a little bit closer, but that's what team bonding is for. If no internet is available at the site, you could consider sending the video out in advance to athletes to watch before the session. And at this time, I actually have to make an exit, so thank you guys for having me. Yeah, but Rebecca will still be on, so thank you guys, and we look forward to implementing in other cities, states, all across the globe. No, I'm kidding.
Thanks, Jatia. Okay, so I'm going to share with you some of our facilitation tips, and then we're going to ask you all for your input on the same topic. So first of all, we recommend, just like with any curriculum or program, being prepared and planning out in advance, looking at this content, making sure that you understand the content, and trying to not read the script completely. So it's a lot more obviously authentic and engaging if the speaker is kind of speaking more naturally. And so it's okay to read the script, just like coaching boys and men. It's okay if the coaches just straight up read off the cards. That's fine. But it is best to try to prepare and study the content ahead of time and try to anticipate maybe some of the questions that athletes might have. We also recommend making efforts to be inclusive of all gender identities. So we want to keep in mind that not all athletes who play on a girls' team may identify as a girl or a lady. So when getting the group's attention, try to avoid stuff like, okay, ladies, and instead try to be more inclusive with terms like, okay, athletes, or okay, bulldogs, that's our school mascot here, okay, wrestlers. Not always the girls and ladies, because not everyone identifies that way. We also want to be inclusive of all sexual and romantic orientation. So just to give you an example, in the relationships lesson, the introduction includes the following statements. So when we are talking about relationships today, we are talking about all types of relationships with a partner, like people who are dating, hanging out, hooking up, or even just friends. And this applies to all sexual orientations, including lesbian, gay, bisexual, straight, etc. We also want to assume that some of our athletes that we're working with are dating already if they're in high school, and some are not. So we know that some of them may have experiences already with consensual sexual activity and others have not. It is also very likely that you'll have at least a few athletes who have experienced sexual assault or sexual abuse. And so, again, as an example in the curriculum, particularly when it brings up any kind of topic around abuse, we always have sensitivity reminders that are scripted in the lessons. Next, we want to create a culture of consent or permission. So what this means is that the facilitators do not ask athletes any personal questions. We never ask them to disclose any more than they are comfortable with. We want participation and engagement, to happen. We can encourage that. We can even incentivize that, but we should never be forcing them to participate. It's totally okay if some athletes don't talk. With that said, it's also okay for you to encourage that participation by maybe saying such as, is anyone on this side of the room willing to share? Or, Maya, what do you think? Asking a student directly what they think is totally okay. So another just tip is to really watch that clock. Like Jatia said, sometimes we do get a little bit longer when the coach does give us 25 or 30 minutes. It's awesome, but some coaches just really want us to take the 20 minutes, and we do not want to take advantage of that. We want to have them in and out in 20 minutes. So it goes by really quickly. So try to get a few responses for each question and then just get it back on track quickly if they get off the topic. And you'll also notice that the curriculum has suggested times for each section to help you stay on track. We want to keep it moving. So for the cool down, you can use like a beanbag or a ball. Like with the basketball team, we can use a basketball, for example, and pass it around kind of like a talking piece. That helps, just the person who's holding the ball to speak, and it kind of helps keep it organized with, keeping track of who's talking and not interrupting. It doesn't necessarily have to be consecutively passed around, like we pass it across the circle, and it just kind of makes it more fun. And, you can read the energy level of your athletes. Sometimes you want to encourage active movement. Sometimes you just want to allow them time to rest and relax. It's kind of up to you, but remember, they are athletes. They are used to moving. It's okay to kind of get them up and moving and make it fun. And then lastly, your encouragement and enthusiastic approach. It really does go a long way. You got to keep in mind, a lot of them have already had a really long day. By the time they get to us, sometimes they've already been at school for like 10 hours. And so we want them to try to make it fun if possible. If you have any funding, try to get some snacks in there. Even if it's just every other group, they will really appreciate that. And we really try to be enthusiastic, validating what they're saying, and really also obviously showing the empathy and the concern and sensitivity when you talk about the more sensitive topics. Okay, so now I have a question for you. What are your tips when you have one or two participants who dominate a group discussion? So in any kind of meeting or group you've ever facilitated, what are your tips when you have someone dominating, taking up a lot of space? Start out by telling the group that each participant will be encouraged to speak. If someone is dominant with the conversation, the facilitator will stand behind their chair and tap the back of the chair. This is to encourage the dominant one to allow others to share their comments. Someone else said, I usually ask for someone who hasn't had a chance to speak yet. That's great. Oh, how about do a pair share? I do love this. I've used this also, where each person takes turns with the person next to them, and then more people can talk. And I think that's a great idea. With us, our teams, I've worked with the golf team that had, I think they had about 7 or 8 kids, and then we've worked with, track that has, upwards of 80 sometimes. And so you can have a huge, huge group, and so sometimes breaking it into smaller groups or a pair share is a really effective facilitation technique. So someone else said after the session or before the session, speak with that particular individual and ask them to be a leader, helping to encourage their friends to share rather than sharing over and over. That's great. Okay, so I want to mention also that I think Jatia was talking in session 1 how we do the group agreements, and that's another opportunity to try to prevent this before it happens in the first place. So a lot of you might have heard of step up or step back, and that's something that we try to make sure goes into the group agreements in session 1. And step up or step back means, you know, if you're the type of person that loves to share and has a lot to say, you know, think about how that could sometimes not allow space for others to talk, and so we encourage you to think about that and to step back at times. And then if you're the type that is more observant or shy or quiet in a large group, it can be really hard to speak up, but we wanted you to really try to challenge yourself in this group and to step up and challenge yourself to share at times. So that's how we describe step up or step back. Okay, now I have another question for you all that you can type into the text chat. How do you encourage participation when you have a really quiet group? Oh, I love this. Do more writing, drawing, or coloring activities. That is great. I also see someone who said, allow time for silence. Sometimes people just need time to think about what they're going to say. Yes, thank you. Invest more time in one-on-one conversations. They'll be more trusting of you and then of one another. I like that. And I do try to do that myself. Someone said bring candy as an incentive. I do have to tell you, I kind of laugh because some of our coaches that we work with get very upset if I bring anything that's not healthy. So I try to bring fruit if I can, and maybe, you know, little crackers. But yes, you can do that. You can share a personal story. Someone said that allowing people to write their answers. So not in this program, but in another program that I facilitated a few years ago, we bought individual dry erase boards and markers for all the group to use, and that was really effective when we had a quiet group. Ooh, someone said to use a thumb ball. I don't know what that is. Okay, great. I really appreciate all of these ideas, and I know that a lot of the expertise is already here on the call, so I appreciate everyone you know, participating, and it's great to read all of these responses. I've gotten some great ideas myself. So what I'm going to talk about next is kind of beyond facilitation, when you're the mentor for a team, how you can build relationships with the teams who you're working with. And we also have a document on our website that's called How to Build Relationships with Teams that gives you the same information. So first, we really recommend attending a few practices or games. And what I try to do with the folks who we have mentoring here is actually building in time for this. So for example, I have a practicum student who is doing this and allowing them to go to the games and practices occasionally as part of their hours is really important. I have found that to be a great opportunity to learn more about the sport. You know, for example, I worked with the wrestling team. I didn't know anything about wrestling. I didn't, honestly, this shows you my bias, I didn't even know that girls wrestled, because when I was in high school, it was a boys' sport. And now they have all genders, and it's a super intense sport, as you probably know. And I took my daughter, and it was really intense, but it was really good to see that dynamic with the team, learn more about the sport, see the interaction and the communication between the coach and the athletes. I learned a lot. And it's also a great opportunity to learn their names. I would always be studying the roster as I was at the game. And I also try to remember specific things that players did and then recognize that at the next session. It's just a way of connecting and showing them that, you know, you care about them and you were, you know, you were there at the game supporting this girls team, and it's very meaningful to call out specific things that you notice, whether it was a play or whether it was teamwork. And this is just generally a great way to support girls teams. So I try to go to at least one game for every team that we're working with. And if you can't attend the games, at least try to keep up with how the season's going. Sometimes that's posted on a website somewhere, the school website, or the local paper. Next, we recommend trying to learn the athletes' names. If you're a coach, that's easy because you usually already know them. But if you're not, you're coming in from the outside, it's just much more genuine to connect with people when you actually know their names and you use their names and pronounce them correctly. So going to the games is a good way to start learning them. I also have studied actually the team picture and just studied the names and trying to remember when I come to the next group. And even just the first few sessions, having them introduce themselves and saying their first name at the beginning of each comment, it can also be helpful. If you have more time, like if you're invited to maybe a preseason retreat, we do a lot of icebreakers and try to get to know them. I also try to ask the team leaders to help us. So sometimes I'll pull out the team captain or some of the upperclassmen before that first session and ask them to help initiate some of the discussion. So a lot of the program does rely on the team, like during the team talk to create those expectations. And so asking the team captains to step up as leaders and really set the tone it can be really helpful. Also asking if they can help teach the team cheers at the end, which is a great way to kind of have closure at the end of the session. We also recommend trying to have really good check-ins and communication with the coaches. As we said before, this is going to be your key to success. And what I've found, especially with JV teams, which is junior varsity, that the season can kind of end sooner than you kind of thought because oftentimes they don't have a playoff season. And so I've been working with teams and all of a sudden I realize, oh, the season's ending next week. And so we have to kind of try to finish it up and wrap it up and have some kind of closure. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping track of where their season's at. So we also want to try to be flexible. Like I said, in Seattle with the rain, sometimes we have to be really flexible with the games and practice schedule. And so we, again, try to just keep in close contact with the coach and make sure that our sessions can stay on schedule and sometimes have to double up and make up sessions if we have to. And then lastly, boundaries. Boundaries are really important. And so while we are recommending for you to build these close relationships with athletes and teams, we also want to make sure that we are modeling healthy and safe boundaries. So, of course, I'm coming from a sexual assault prevention perspective, and so, oh, sorry, there's the bell. So we are wanting to make sure that we model those good boundaries. So this includes not discussing your own personal relationships with the athletes. Do not try to be cool or connect with them, where it's kind of undermining other authorities, such as allowing them to break the rules, not singling out or giving super special attention or privileges to one particular athlete or a small group of athletes, making sure that coaches and parents know always what we're doing with the athletes, and we're not behind closed doors. We want to have a private space where people can talk, but we also don't want it to be in secrecy for any reason. We also want to make sure that mentors are reviewing policies that are maybe in place already at the school for volunteers or at the sexual assault or domestic violence program, making sure that they're following all those procedures. And as we know, at the end of the day, practicing really good boundaries is part of our prevention efforts. We are modeling for the athletes what's appropriate interactions, what that should look like between youth and adults who have a supervisory role. Okay, so next I want to talk about supporting survivors. And this is getting toward the end here, and then we'll have some time for questions. So supporting survivors, we want to make sure that mentors, especially if they're not coming from, as a staff member from a sexual assault or DV program, we want to make sure that they feel prepared if an athlete should disclose that they've been a victim of abuse. First of all, your basics of, being a really good listener, believing, affirming, validating, supporting, and listening are all, really the best ways to support survivors. Usually that will come naturally to most people, just really being there for them. And we also want to know what our local community resources are. So again, at the beginning, we talked about the advocate being an important role. We always want to make sure we have that connection with a local program, or even within the school. Like here at the school, we have school counselors, we have the teen health center, and so we also have a great local hotline, the crisis clinic, and they have a line just for teens. And so I always refer them to lots of different community resources and ways, hopefully resources that can be accessed in different ways, by phone, in person, or online. And then lastly, we want to make sure that our mentors know about what the reporting requirements are. So in this district, the way they define a mandated reporter is, it's strictly defined. They have a list of categories of people. If they have these certain jobs, they are a mandated reporter. Sometimes coaches would be a mandated reporter, other times not. Your mentor, it depends on what their role is if they're a mandated reporter. But regardless, we would just want to make sure that they know what to do. They know who to call if they do ever get a disclosure. They know how to get support for themselves and for their student who they're mentoring, and we just want to make sure that all the district and agency protocols are followed as well, whether that's documentation or reporting to a supervisor or whatever it might be. Okay, and then lastly, before we take questions, I just want to briefly mention evaluation, and the reason I'm mentioning this briefly is because we have a whole section on this topic in Plan for Webinar 3, which is in 2 weeks. So I want to just briefly mention that all of our evaluation tools, including our pre- and post-test, are available on the website. So you go to athletesasleaders.org/evaluation-tools, and you'll see it there. There's also a web link there in your box to the right if you want to go directly to it. I want to announce that we are seeking pilot sites for this spring. Here in Seattle, our spring season just started this week, and so I know a lot of you might be already underway, but if you have time to make sure that this can get up and running and finished with all 10 sessions this season, we are very interested in hearing from you. So you can email me directly, or you can go to our evaluation page here, and there's a little sign-up form if you're interested in being a pilot site. We are asking that pilot sites already have it set up with the relationships and know who the coach, the team is, which high school, and who the advocate will be and who the mentor will be, and that they agree to watch these webinars as a form of their training. And we have a partnership with the University of Pittsburgh who is assisting with our program evaluation, and I'll tell you all about that if you are interested in piloting. We also have a little bit of funding for some incentives, small incentives for participating. So just let me know if you're interested. And with that said, I'm wondering if anyone has any questions. So go ahead and type into the text box. And Jasenia, if you saw any questions earlier that you think I should address, just let me know. Casey posted a link. I'm assuming that's the thumb ball that I was wondering about. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Misty, for your feedback. Someone emailed me while I'm waiting for you to type questions. Someone emailed me earlier today and asked how quickly this webinar will be posted. And Jasenia and I are going to actually try to get it up later today or tomorrow. That's the ideal. If we have no tech issues, hopefully it will be posted tomorrow on our website, and that would be at athletesasleaders.org/training. Someone asked, what is the cost, please? There is no cost. No cost for the curriculum. It's free. It's online. You can go on there today and access all of the lessons. the real cost is the resources that it takes to get this going. So that would be on your end how much capacity you have to be able to support this. So I don't want to say, oh, it's free and it's just simple to get it up and running. I mean, you do need dedicated staff time to build those relationships, to coordinate the implementation, to coordinate the evaluation. And, again, if you have funding to pay your facilitators, obviously that's the ideal. But if you don't, we've had great luck with volunteers and interns being facilitators. We've worked with local universities to have this be an internship for college students, including college athletes would be awesome to be facilitators, or recent college graduates. It's nice when it's an alumni of that high school, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. So there's not always a huge cost involved, but if you do have, for some reason, a huge grant that you can devote to this, it's ideal to be able to, pay folks and bring incentives such as food to the groups. I think is really helpful. Okay, great. I see someone who wants to be a pilot site. Yay! You are welcome. Jasenia, did you see any questions earlier that you think I should address?
Not at the moment.
Okay, I'm going to advance to the next slide so you can have my information. And my email is rebamill@uw.edu, and so feel free to reach out to me directly, or on our website there's also a contact form, and that will also come to me. Let's see. Someone said, how long will the recorded webinars be available? Is that time immemorial? Jasenia, will they be up forever? Hopefully.
They will be up forever. Forever and ever.
Forever and ever. Okay, great. Well, I will invite you to just email me directly if you have some specific questions, and I really, really appreciate all of your time today, and we look forward to hopefully having you join us on the next webinar, which is on March 14th. I can't believe it's already March. It's hard to believe. So at the same time, same day of the week, 2 weeks from today, and we'll be talking about advanced topics, which will include evaluation, as well as how to train coaches and support them, as well as some other advanced topics of how to kind of expand the program beyond this. So additional things that you can do to support comprehensive prevention efforts. And with that said, I want to thank you all so much for attending today. And Jasenia, do you have any final words?
No, I would just like to say thank you, Rebecca, and extend a thank you as well to Jatia. I know she's not with us, but yes, it was a fantastic webinar. Thank you again, Rebecca, for this amazing program and for bringing Coaching Boys into Men into your, bringing the Coaching Boys into Men community into the Athletes as Leaders world as well.
Well, thank you for making that connection. And you all have a good rest of your day and week, and hopefully we'll chat soon.
Thank you.